Okay, Chair. It seems to me that there's an elephant in the room which seems to be present at more or less every one of your meetings. It can be spotted in two of your agenda items this afternoon, and it showed up also at the last Assembly meeting as well. And I think we all know that unless it's given recognition and acted on, the GCP is going to fail in its objectives. First, item 7 on your agenda on the Western Orbital includes a recommendation for increased capacity for park and ride around junction 11 on the M11. From section 4 of the report, it looks like the premise is that this should be accompanied by additional demand management measures within Cambridge. In other words, measures that will actively discourage car use and divert demand to public transport. Your item 8 on Histon Road, like the similar item at your July meeting on Milton Road, recognises the views of the local community, which I welcome. And it's good also to hear that pedestrian and cycling provision will be improved there. But the original aspiration to transform public transport access to the city seems to have almost vanished, down at best to small incremental changes. At the Assembly's recent meeting, we received an interim presentation from the consultants Steer Davis Cllr on their evaluation of rapid mass transit alternatives. This suggested that tunnelling, which has been regarded as a potential means of bypassing road constraints by going underground, was at best likely to be feasible for short distances and would take a long time to deliver. Chair, the elephant is present in all of these points. In all, what we need to hear is that the GCP is planning to get serious about managing demand from private vehicles, discouraging their use in the urban area. Getting modal shift from cars to public transport has always been one of the most important objectives of this partnership, and we really can't duck it. The time to keep kicking this question into the long grass must be running out. Apparently, the traffic study carried out last summer suggests that while we've been working on reducing traffic by 10 to 15% on 2011 levels, it's actually got 10% worse. The partnership's new brochure on the Cambourne to Cambridge project, to my mind correctly says, and I quote, "The rate at which our area is growing requires an immediate step change towards sustainable travel." Yet we're told, via those consultants working on rapid mass transit, that there's still no consensus amongst you on the way further restraint on the car might be achieved. So the question, could you tell us all when will be the right time for this demand management nettle to be grasped? Instead of just arguing between yourselves behind the scenes, apparently so far to no avail, when will you open this subject to properly informed public debate?
I think what I might do is ask all of us, all 5 of us, to say something, because obviously we can't give you a board-approved decision because we haven't had notice and it's not an agenda item. So, but it is an elephant, and why don't we just give you 5 personal views? I think we'll start with our transport portfolio here, then we'll, I think, move on to the City Council, and then perhaps Mark and Phil, and I'll come at the end.
Okay, well, thank you, Tim. Welcome. Nice to see you. And thank you for the question, and thank you for giving us a bit of a heads up for the answer. Let me try to address the elephant, I think, actually, because there are many elephants, okay, and giraffes as well, along with maybe the odd lion or two, as you might say. So, but I'll try to address it. So let me just start with the big conversation, which you know we've been doing. And a lot of things have come out from that big conversation. All of those will be considered in the fullness of time. We've not got all the results. We might have some indications about what that big conversation is saying from the people in this area, so they have that opportunity to say what they want to say. And I'm sure some of the things that you have brought out will be part of that big conversation coming back to us. But I think it's a package, in my view, personal view, about what we do with congestion. We've got things like workplace parking levy, which are being considered. We've got things like the air pollution, which came up when we did the consultation quite heavily about residents concerned about who live in the city, about cars coming into the city. And certainly that is very much something that I personally think is something that needs to be explored greater than we have at the moment. You're aware, I'm sure, that recently, last meeting in this room by the Highways and Communities, there was discussions about parking issues in general, so on-street parking, park and ride. The suggestion coming forward about residence zones and parking, and all of that was approved and will go forward. So I think there is many things to be said, and it will come to the working party, the Transport Working Party, which I chair and you are on, for some discussion in the future to get a more view of Assembly members and other members within the Working Party about the issue, as you rightly say, about where does demand management fit into this. What I see is a very complex jigsaw. It's not one thing against another thing. It is a jigsaw. It is things about Milton Road, as you've said, and Histon Road. So all of those are parts of the jigsaw. And I think we need to see the jigsaw in its entirety. I think we know about the issues of growth. We know suggestions coming forward through the NIC, National Infrastructure Commissioner, about what might see in respect of capacity in rail. All of that actually needs to be taken, in my view, into account. We know we've opened Cambridge North Station, and I'm sure, for instance, that there's going to be, well, there is an announcement, I think, in today's budget about Cambridge South Station. The Combined Authority, along with Greater Cambridge Partnership, are undertaking a capacity on rail, which is in the public domain, which is quite important because we are reaching what I call rail capacity in this area. In my view, all of that needs to be taken into account, including the elephant.
Thank you. Yeah, yes.
So where I come from is that I think I retain the view that I took as chair of the board that we have to come up with an intervention that is solidly about demand management, because whilst we do, as Ian said, need to fit it with other work underway, we have to reduce the number of cars coming into the city. So whilst I still support workplace parking levy, that isn't in itself straight demand management, albeit that I believe that in its way will have a significant benefit in getting particularly the employers where we've got the greatest concentrations of traffic in the east, west, north and south to act very differently. So I wanted to have the recent consultation to focus on that, and I will be looking at the feedback that comes out of that consultation that's specifically on demand management. I want to see the joint work that's there between the Assembly and the Board come up with a proposal or a couple of options, and there to be consultation, but with the spirit that we're actually going to make an intervention. I think that we do have really severe air pollution problems, and clearly what we do in the city centre on that, and there is some good work underway, is critical. I definitely believe there should be a relationship in however the charge or intervention occurs and the amount of emissions that are being caused by that person or that operator of a vehicle coming into the city. So it's not going to be simple because it will have impacts, including on people coming into the city. But we as I understand, the board is still committed to reducing the vehicle traffic by 10 to 15% based on 2011 data. So I think it was wrong, Tim, a little mischievous to characterise that there's some kind of debate going on, argument going on. I think it's a team job between Assembly and board members and a consultation. And there are, as you know, many things going on. And again, whilst there has been some internal discussions with the consultants, again, I think it's premature to say what Steer Davis Glee are going to recommend, because I haven't seen anything. And along with that, along with what is still to be confirmed about what we were hoping would be in today's budget in terms of East-West, then we're definitely, and along with the various projects, including those that we cover today, yeah, we have to come up with an overall package, but there's a painful choice in there about reducing the number of not just cars, but other diesel vehicles, including tackling some of the delivery issues. And there's initiatives on both taxis and buses to build on existing work to go electric. And on roads like Histon Road, I'm not out for popularity on that particular issue, but it's a narrow road. And I personally don't think that was ever going to be a project. And I think by listening to the views of residents and by adapting that to a cycling stroke pedestrian scheme, I think we've probably got that one right. And we'll come on to that later.
Lewis, thank you. Mark, you represent business. What does business think?
I haven't consulted them specifically on this, Chair, but I think the reality is, Tim's point is modal shift, that is getting people onto better public transport. Yeah, the view must be to get better public transport, you need revenue generation. We need to generate some revenue to pay for the better public transport. How's that going to be done? Well, it's going to have to be done with a range of measures, isn't it? Intelligent congestion charging of some form, potentially, workplace parking levy, and all of those measures. The reality is that the biggest issue we've got is the clean air zone and the requirement to cut pollution in the city. And I don't think anybody won't buy into that. Business buys into that, everybody should buy into that. Why would that not be something that we would all support? So, therefore, from an economic impact perspective, the sort of private sector view must be that business still needs to do business, it still needs to deliver, it still needs to function and service the economy. But if business is consulted and a planned approach is delivered, then business will adapt. It will evolve into that new system and work with whatever is agreed. What business can't deal with, and we saw this with the control points, business can't deal with an immediacy where it suddenly can't do this or do that or go down that street. So I'm not quite sure exactly which elephant we're talking about, but for me it's about congestion charging. And for me it's always been that needs to be highly intelligent, whether that's deliverable, but we need an income stream to pay for better public transport, and without something of that nature we're not going to have that income and it's not going to be sustainable. That would be my view, Chair.
Mark, thank you. Phil, you represent the university and university academics are residents as well.
Indeed. Thank you. I'd start by saying that I'm very sympathetic to this issue and to what Councillor Bick has said. I think it's worth pointing out that as a member of the GCP now for since February, one thing that struck me is that it is evidence-based, unlike some organisations, and we need that evidence-led policy. It's got to be part, congestion charging has to be part of a coherent transport strategy, as Mark said. I think part of that strategy is how we're going to pay for improvements in public transport. There are also a lot of equity issues about who is going to pay. I think if it's going to be successful, it's not just people coming in and out of Cambridge, it's residents of Cambridge that will have to pay this as well for fairness sake. But I'm not a voting member of the executive. I don't have to get re-elected. I'm not as accountable as others here. I think we should have that debate. I think it has to be evidence-led. I think we need a convincing, compelling narrative about why this is important. And I think the game changer since we last discussed this, it's been said a couple of times already, is air quality. That has risen up the political agenda. It's risen up the awareness of the residents of Cambridge. Oxford has made an announcement on that. I regret that. I think we should have beaten them to it. I think this is something that we really should be seriously discussing in a rational and evidence-led way.
Thank you. My view is, I think actually your question on when is the right time. The answer, if you look on page 113, City Access Strategy comes back on the 21st of March. That is not going to, that is going to be the start of the debate. That is not necessarily going to be the debate. There was then the purdah period for the elections. So I think probably the real answer to your question is the second half of calendar 2018, would be my guess. Picking up on the evidence point, it's absolutely right. We've got the ANPR study and all of that. Picking up on what residents actually feel, we've got the big conversation. So all the pieces are coming together. There are lots of different forms of demand management. We have tried one. Didn't go down very well, but that was the control point, so give us the brownie points for trying. Classic full-on congestion charging is deeply unpopular among residents of South Cambridgeshire. There are 2 resolutions of South Cambridgeshire Council against it, and I think, if I'm right, quite a lot of county councillors are against it. So if something like this happens in any shape or form, the most important thing, it seems to me, is it has public acceptance and public buy-in, and that means it takes time and it happens slowly. Tim, does that help? Is that?
Yeah, you could have all saved a lot of time if you said the 21st of March.
We got there in the end.
But I think
It's not when the full debate will happen. It's
No,
the beginning of the
indeed.
debate. Must do expectation management on that.
So I could thank you for your contributions. I think it helps to draw those out. I think that whatever else we were planning, what I hear of these numbers that were taken this year implies that it's doubly more important and almost doubly more necessary in terms of numbers as well. And so whatever we were planning on little pieces of a jigsaw, I think we need to do that as fast as we possibly can and make those pieces of the jigsaw as big as we possibly can. But my purpose was to keep this subject underlined as a very important one for the partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.